Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. I thought I'd make a video today about touring, explaining to you why I tour, how I tour, where I tour, what I take with me, who I go with, etc. And the reason for me wanting to make this video is because I don't think enough people go touring. And I'm not talking about global, circumnavigations or anything. I'm talking about a weekend away or a fortnight away or just a week or any length of time, but just to go and see somewhere different. For me, motorcycle touring is about losing myself in the journey. There's nothing better, in my view, than just having this relationship between you, the road and the machine, and you're in the environment you're in. I mean, many of us live in the past. We yearn for what we had. Many of us live in the future. We yearn for what we'd like. But few of us actually live in the present, which is the absolute best place to live. And certainly for your health, mental health and any other health, it's a good place to be. And of course, riding a motorcycle, you have to live in the moment. If you don't live in the moment, you die. Because, as soon as you start thinking about something else other than what you're doing, then you're likely to make a mistake and crash. Or someone's going to crash into you. So, I do two types of touring. I tour with my other half, and we have, we had until recently a Triumph T120 that we used to tour on. We did many thousands of miles touring together. And I also tour on my own. And I don't like touring in groups. I've toured in groups. I've been on tours with Bike Magazine, and years ago they used to arrange tours. They used to have a whole program of tours going from sort of April through to October, but they don't do that anymore. But when they did do it, that was my first experience of touring in a country other than my home country. And the first tour that I went on with Bike Magazine, we did Spain and France. So we got the ferry to Santander, did a bit of Spain, up through France, and we ended up back at St Malo before we went back to wherever we lived. And the following year, and I met some great people, some really, really nice people, some people who I'm still friends with now. And the following year, they did a similar one, except they only did Spain. And so we got the ferry to Santander and we went down towards almost to Portugal, and then we went and did a bit around Spain. I can't remember how long these tours were, 10 days, 12 days, something like that. But on the second tour, when I was touring with Bike Magazine, you sort of gravitate towards people you can relate to. And certainly there was a group of people that I latched onto, and there was just four of us. I think there was four of us. Well, sorry, there were four others, five including me. And so there were 5 bikes, and that we all rode in a similar manner, and it was great. Not too many bikes to make it logistically tricky, but enough to make it interesting that you were going with your mates. And on the second tour, that was in 1997, there was a complete twat on a I think he was on a XZR or something, Kawasaki 600, who thought it was great fun to do wheelies through towns and villages. Anyway, long story short, he killed himself. He went out, we had a day off, we were staying in this parador in a place called Bayona, which is just north of the Portuguese border with Spain, and he went out, acted like a twat, and crashed his bike and went headfirst into a granite wall, killed himself, which was really inconvenient. Not only for him, although I'm sure it was inconvenient for him, but for everyone else, because what it meant was that the rest of the tour was ruined. It was darkened by this tragic event, which, not meaning any disrespect for the bloke, but quite frankly, he brought it on himself, which was very annoying, because I didn't want him to ruin my holiday, and nobody else did either, but he did. And that's one of the reasons why I prefer to ride in much smaller groups or alone. I'm quite happy touring alone. So when I tour alone, do I get lonely? Yes, I get lonely. I don't mind being on my own, but I don't like being lonely. Do I get anxious about stuff? Yes, of course I get anxious about stuff. I'm touring in countries where I don't speak the language. I may not have any of their currency. I don't know if they've got card machines that will accept my card. I'm not sure if my phone will work properly because, you know, in spite of what 3 may tell me, it often doesn't. And what happens if I break down, and what happens if I get a puncture, and you know, there's loads and loads of what ifs, like hundreds. In fact, if you really wanted to, you could make a list of thousands of what ifs, which would prevent you from ever leaving the UK. But I just don't think it's worth worrying about, because generally speaking, in my travels, and I have travelled extensively in the course of my career, people are generally pretty nice. And they generally want to help you. So if you're in trouble, there's usually someone that can help you out. So other reasons why people tell me that you shouldn't go touring is I don't have the right bike. Well, people have toured around the world on a Honda 90. So don't ever anyone tell me I don't have the right bike. I have toured extensively in Europe on a Honda Fireblade. On a Gix 1000. Nick Sanders went round the world on an R1. So whatever bike you've got, the chances are there's no reason for whatever bike you've got to prevent you from going touring. The other thing that people often say to me is, you know, I'm not sure where to go. You know, I don't know whether to just go to France or should I go further afield. I like Italian food. Should I? Go where you think you want to be. Go where you think you want to enjoy. I like riding on lovely roads in the sunshine. So hence, I generally go south. I love Spain. Spanish roads are brilliant. The police are generally okay. There's no reason to not go to Spain. And certainly if I was going to tour for the first time, or if somebody was going to tour for the first time, I would say go to Spain, because the roads are largely deserted. The other thing with Spain is because it's a big country, the towns are a long way apart. Like in the UK, I mean, you can't go really more than 5 miles without coming to another settlement, because the UK is a very, very small, overcrowded rock. But you go to Spain, you can ride for miles without coming to anything. You just got open pasture land or whatever, you know, and so you can actually lose yourself in this environment. The other thing is can I afford to go? You know, people seem to think that touring costs a lot of money. I looked up the other day. You can get, if you go on to P&O ferries, you can cross the Channel, Dover to Calais, return for £39.50. That's a man or woman. Other genders are available, I understand, and a motorbike. So for less than 40 quid, you can go and get to Europe. And once you're on the European mainland, then the world's your oyster. Now, if you wanted to tour only in France, for example, because one of the principal concerns when you're away touring is the bike going to be okay? You know, because that's the thing you need to look after the most. Now, you can stay in expensive hotels if you want to, or you can stay in cheap hotels. There's a group of hotels, I call them hotels, but I'm using the term very loosely, called Premier Class in France. I mean, Premier Class group is anything but Premier Class. It's basically shipping containers stacked up together with a shower inside and a comfy bed. But they're very clean, the bed is comfortable, the shower's hot, the breakfast is utterly rubbish because it's out of a vending machine, so you don't want to do that. But they're amazingly cheap, and also invariably they've got a fenced compound around the car park, so your bike's fine. I think the cheapest I ever stayed in a Premier Class cost me €17 for one night, so 15 quid, 14 quid, something like that. And then you can go to a boulangerie in the morning after you've had your hot shower and you've got out of your comfy bed, and you can go and buy, you know, a baguette and a cup of coffee for €2 or €3 and you're away. So fuel will be your biggest expense. Although fuel in Europe is generally slightly cheaper than it is here, depending on which country you're going to. So your accommodation does not need to cost a lot of money, and you don't need to spend vast amounts on food. If you go to Spain, then you can generally, there's a menu del dia available at almost all restaurants. Someone once told me that it's actually a legal requirement that restaurants have to offer a menu del dia. I don't know if that's true, but I have been in some pretty nice restaurants and asked for a menu del dia, and they've sort of shrugged their shoulders and said, all right then, what do you want? Which is great. And invariably they will be 10, 11, 12, 13 euros for a starter, main course, dessert and coffee and a beer. So, you know, touring does not need to cost a lot of money, because you've got to remember what you're there for. You're there to see something different. The touring is about the journey. It's about going and seeing something that you don't typically see at home. And, you know, you're out in the air. If you wanted to, you know, do it in a car, then you might as well watch it on the telly. But you know as well as I do, because you're watching this because you're interested in motorcycles, that being in a foreign country on a motorcycle is a wonderful thing. So, another issue that people say to me is, I haven't got the right gear. Well, if you ride in the UK, you've got the right gear, because the UK has such a variance of atmospheric conditions. You know, it pisses with rain at 1 minute, the sun's shining the next. You're boiling hot 1 minute, you're freezing cold the next. You will have the right gear. And you don't need, you know, Touratech panniers on your C90. You can happily get by with a rucksack bungeed to the back seat. You don't need to spend a lot of money. So, what is stopping you? We're in a fantastic position right now where motorcycles haven't been banned, petrol is still available, EVs have not taken over the world. We currently can travel, I mean currently now it is April 2023, you can travel almost anywhere. I mean, I wouldn't recommend going to Ukraine, not at the moment anyway, but there are very few countries that you couldn't go to within relatively easy reach. I mean, anecdotally, last year I took my Kawasaki Z900 RS Cafe I went through Holland, Germany, Czech Republic, Austria, Italy, France and Spain. So I went from Harwich in the UK over to Hook of Holland on the ferry with Stena Lines, and then I came back via Santander from Spain back to the UK. And wonderful experiences. The whole thing was a great experience. 3,500 miles. I think I was away for 13 days or 14 days. Can't remember. And it was all about the ride and the experiences. You know, I mean, when I was in Czech Republic, I'd never been to Czech Republic, and I like countries that are slightly underdeveloped. I don't want them to be so underdeveloped that you need to like dig a hole to get water, but or there's no toilet paper. We all have standards after all. But Czech Republic is relatively undeveloped. And I was staying in this hotel. It was a very nice hotel, and it was an old brewery. They still had a brewery on the premises, because in Czech Republic they make some amazing beers. And when I checked in, the lady on reception said, would you like to book a table for an evening meal? And I said, no, I'm going to wander into the village and see what's there, you know, this little town village type thing. And she said, oh no, there's no restaurants. I said, really? No restaurants? No, she said, no. None at all? No. Okay, well, I'll take my chances. Anyway, later that, you know, sort of around 7 o'clock, I wandered sort of the 500, 600, 700 metres into this sort of this very small town, and there was a square, and there was a few people sitting at a bar having a drink. Anyway, I wandered up and around, and I went into a bar, and I said, "Is it possible to eat?" You know, because obviously this is the international signal for I want to eat. And this young lad, I say young lad, he was probably about 25, but he was young to me. He said, oh, perfect English, by the way. He said, we don't do food here. But he said, the only place you'll get food in the square is if you go down there, turn right, about 100 metres down, there'll be a doorway that'll be open, and you'll probably hear people in there. Just go in, and that's a bar, and they do food. So I wandered off down, and sure enough, there was this doorway, and I could hear voices and what have you. And anyway, I walked in, and it was one of those sort of I walked in and the piano stopped type stranger in town. Did that just beep? Yes, I think it did. I think the camera just beeped because I was talking too long. Yeah, so anyway, I went in, and the piano stopped and what have you. And anyway, I went up to the barman and said to the chap behind the bar, who spoke not a single word of English, and nobody in the bar did, that I wanted to eat. So I had Google Translate, and I was saying I want to eat something local, and I was showing him. And anyway, he sat me down, and he went into the kitchen where presumably Mrs. Bar Lady was knocking up something tasty, and sort of about 20 minutes later or so, he came out with a plate of food, which was flipping gorgeous. And we were laughing, me and this guy. I mean, we didn't speak the same language at all, but I was making gestures, he was making gestures, we were laughing together. It was a lovely interaction, and I had a lovely meal, and it cost about £3. So, and then of course I paid the bill, and I went back to my hotel, where the meal would have probably cost me £30. And those sort of things. Just the same as riding through Portugal, and you can smell the wild flowers in the cork groves, and all these things, all these interactions, all these experiences add to life's rich tapestry. And you're only going to do that, you're only going to experience that sort of thing if you get on and go touring. I can't recommend it enough. So there's nothing stopping you. It doesn't cost a great deal. You've probably got the right gear. Whichever bike you've got, you can go touring on. Don't listen to what the ad men will tell you. So go out there and enjoy it. I know I do. In a week, my other half and I are going to Spain and Portugal. In a month, I'm going to Romania, which is I've never been to. It's a massive trip. I'm away for about 3.5 weeks. 5,500, 6,000 miles. So we're talking, for me, some serious journeys. And I'm anxious and looking forward to it in equal amounts. So I hope you've enjoyed my rattling on. If you did, then please comment. Let me know where you go. Where do you enjoy riding? Why haven't you gone touring? Do you plan to go touring? All those things are interesting. So that's about it. Thanks very much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to. There will be other videos coming along, and I will try and get them out a little bit earlier. Thanks very much. Bye for now.